Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which after we choose our starting hand, our entire deck gets banished. Today we're going to try a crazy meme deck that is actually surprisingly effective in this event, and is absolutely hilarious. So let's go check it out. So today we'll be playing a Skellige Reckless Flurry deck that is a bit of a meme, but actually is still strong enough to hold its own, certainly against non-meta decks, and potentially even the Nilfgaard meta every now and again. But the reason why it is a meme deck is because our primary win condition is to play Kambi at the end of round 3 to banish our opponent's last card, so they don't get the chance to play it. And because players do not draw cards in between rounds in this event, that means if we have a long round 1 and or round 2, we might each have just one card remaining in round 3, so if we play Kambi and discard the only card that they have, then they just don't take a turn in round 3, and the 4 points from Kambi is all we need. So that's the goal. So in round 1, we'll push hard with our bronze units, which for the most part are all 8 power, which is surprisingly good, and have conditions that either in this case don't matter because we don't have a deck, or are easy enough to avoid the downsides of them. And on Craite Raiders, slightly worse in round 1 and round 2, but by round 3 they're still quite effective. And then a few cards like the Tuirseach Skirmisher that we actually try to keep in our hand for round 3 and make the target of Kambi's discard effect. The same can of course be said of Morkvarg. Then we also have Arnaghad plus Sukrus, the classic combo, to destroy many of our opponent's cards once we get down to 4 cards or less in our hand. We also have Morkvarg for a lot of damage, and Junod to destroy some of our opponent's damaged cards. However, while we do want round 1 to go long so that we have a short round 3, we actually don't want to win round 1 because we do not want last say in round 3. Hear me out. The plan is round 1 goes long so that we don't have many cards remaining. But if we're on red coin and our opponent has played one more card than us, then we can let them win round 1, then hopefully they dry pass in round 2 since they've gone a card down, which means it's a great opportunity for us to use Mushy Truffle, which will give us a little Havfrue, which is all we need to win round 2, but also gives us some resilience and some extra power carrying over into round 3 with Golden Froth. And then if we both just have one card in our hand, we use Kambi, discard their last card, and win with Kambi alone. Or if the round goes slightly longer than that, then we can play Syanna first, and then use Kambi to discard 2 cards from their hand. And again, if we have extra cards at the time, then Morkvarg and the Tuirseach Skirmishers are the cards that we would like to have that get discarded from Kambi. And if we haven't used Covenant of Steel yet, then we can use that to help protect Syanna. So that's the plan, and crazy as it might be, it's surprisingly not that hard to pull it off if we have Kambi in our hand. And if not, we have enough strong bronze units that it's possible to win even without Kambi. So let's go see it in action. Okay, so first thing you want to do is check to see if you have Kambi, because if you do have Kambi, then you want some of those cards that get summoned back onto the board when they get discarded. If you don't have Kambi, then you don't want those cards. And now that we do have Kambi, we can combine that with Syanna for a double discard combo. That means our goal here is going to be to have a long round 1, but lose that round 1 so that we have first say in round 3. And while it's hard to get this combo to work perfectly, in this match I'll show you what is more or less the ideal set of circumstances for Kambi. The key in round 1 is to lean heavily on your point slam bronze units. Usually, these alone are enough to keep pace with your opponent unless you're on red coin and they immediately activate their stratagem, which is why I used a leader ability charge here. So now for the rest of round 1, it's relatively mindless, you're just trying to keep it close so that your opponent doesn't pass early. That, and because we're not actually trying to win round 1, we kinda like it if our opponent plays some of their biggest cards here. That way, even if they get the chance to play 1 or 2 cards in round 3, hopefully they've already used all of their best ones. On the other hand, if we have Kambi in hand and we're planning to finish with that, then we can play super aggressively in round 1 if we'd like. So play everything but Kambi or Syanna if you have her, since we'll probably just use a throwaway card in round 2 and we won't have time to play those big cards in round 3. In this case, the tough part is we can't play Freya's Blessing in round 1 because we don't yet have any bronze cards in our graveyard. At least, unless our opponent destroys something, which would actually be kind of welcome. Because that means right now, Freya's Blessing would probably need to be our round 2 throwaway card rather than Mushy Truffle, which would ideally have been the card we'd play in round 2 for the resilience. And that forces us to make some suboptimal plays in round 1, so you might want to mulligan Freya's Blessing if you have Kambi. And that's what forces us to play Mushy Truffle here. And if you're wondering why I didn't play Covenant of Steel earlier to protect Arnaghad, it's because I was thinking of saving it for round 3 to protect Syanna instead. And because our opponent still had the lead, I used Golden Froth here to encourage them to play at least one more card in this round. Because if they go a card down to win round 1 when they have so few cards in their hand, they will probably dry pass in round 2, meaning that we don't need the extra carryover value. And this is why I wanted to save Covenant of Steel for round 3, because I figured they probably had Desiree, which would have been able to take out Syanna. And we should pass here because we want to save Syanna and Kambi, and Freya's Blessing will be our throwaway in round 2. And round 1 went long with us losing with a card up, and that is exactly what we were looking for. And this is actually absolutely perfect that they're playing their second to last card here, even if it has Resilience, and you'll see why in just a minute. And as I said before, Freya's Blessing was a little bit of a trap card because we couldn't play it until round 2, however it works perfectly in this situation as a throwaway card because it is still enough for us to take the lead. And we can either use leader ability charges now or at the beginning of round 3 to get rid of their Resilience unit. And all this sets up what is more or less the perfect situation for Kambi in round 3. Because we have first say and our opponent only has one card left in their hand, which means if we play Kambi here, we discard that card, preventing them from doing anything in round 3, giving us the automatic win. Alright, so now I'm going to show you a match with a more suboptimal Kambi combo that is perhaps a little more realistic. And because we have both Kambi and Syanna in our hand immediately, that means we can make a point of keeping some of the cards that go back onto the playing field when they get discarded, such as the Tuirseach Skirmisher or potentially Morkvarg. Mushy Truffle is also great for round 2 throwaway, which means we're just looking to optimize our hand for round 1 here. And remember that the key here is to have a long round 1 in which we lose but with a card up so that our opponent dry passes in round 2 and we have first say in round 3. Okay, for the record, Master of Puppets is actually kind of terrifying because almost all of our round 1 value comes from our high point bronzes, so we gotta get rid of this thing. Fortunately, with this deck, we can play very aggressively in round 1, although we'd like to save as many leader ability charges as possible for round 3. That way, in case our opponent still gets units on the board, we can use that leader ability to take them out. So now with no more Master of Puppets, playing our bronze units is much safer. And it's times like these that I wish we had Heatwave in our hand right now, or even Morkvarg Heart of Terror for that matter. But all we need to do is keep pace enough to encourage our opponent to keep on playing in round 1. And nice as it would have been to have played Sukrus to protect some of those units, they have Enslave 6, so they absolutely would have stolen him if we did. But we are starting to run out of cards that we're comfortable playing in round 1, so I guess we'll try to sneak Sukrus in here. And yeah, there's the C's, as expected. And as much as we would like for round 1 to go longer, because we can no longer keep pace without playing some of our key cards that we want to save for round 3, this is where we're going to have to pass. But, because our opponent still played one more card than us in round 1, they'll dry pass here, so that sets up a nice Mushy Truffle. That way, even though they have too many cards in their hand for Kambi to banish all of them, that carryover value could be the key difference maker. And because we both still have numerous cards in our hand, that means Syanna to set up a more powerful Kambi could also be an important factor. So this would have been just about the ideal circumstances for Syanna plus Kambi, unless they use Vilgefortz to get rid of Syanna. If Syanna stuck around, Kambi would have discarded the other 2 cards in our hand. However, without Syanna, that means now we're only discarding 1. So let's make sure that that card is the Tuirseach Skirmisher, because that will get summoned back onto the board when we do so. Also worth noting that the Skirmishers and Morkvarg get summoned to the melee row when they get discarded, so we should have put as many cards as possible in the melee row to line them up for Golden Froth. So now it's Kambi time. It's not perfect because they have 2 cards in their hand, so we won't be able to discard both of them here, but between the Skirmisher getting resummoned when we discard it, our leader ability damage, and Golden Froth, it should still be difficult for our opponent to catch us. Haha, so even if their last card is a Point Slam Tibor, they still can't catch us. Alright, so now I'm going to show you a match in which we had the ability to use the Kambi combo, but we didn't even need it. First off, we have Kambi, which means 1 Skirmisher is good, but 2 Skirmishers is overkill, unless we get Syanna. So our first mulligan is to see if we get Syanna. And since we didn't get her, let's switch out one of these Skirmishers for something else. And since we're going to want to push hard in round 1, but Freya's Blessing may only be usable starting in round 2, let's also mulligan that. And since we're on blue coin this time, we might play this more like a typical match in which we actually try to win round 1. And as we've seen before, round 1 is generally about playing high value bronze units and then being aggressive with our gold units as long as we're not talking about Kambi or Syanna. And as you'll start to see, just our bronze units alone are really powerful. And at this stage, we could start to set up the Sukrus plus Arnaghad combo, however, we have such a big lead that that doesn't seem necessary, so maybe we save that for round 3. Because yes, our opponent does pass here, giving us the round 1 win, albeit a little bit earlier than we might like to set up Kambi. And for that reason, and because we still have the Sukrus plus Arnaghad combo, let's try pushing a little bit here in round 2. That way we also have time to benefit from the boost from Golden Froth. And although Sukrus getting locked does shut down the ideal Sukrus plus Arnaghad combo, it does still work reasonably well at bleeding out some of their cards here in round 2. So now let's use our leader ability to set up Junod and use Golden Froth, and then we'll finish with that in round 2. And Nature's Rebuke does not put any points on their side of the board, so they're going to need to keep on playing here to catch us, making this the perfect time to pass. And they need to play even more cards to catch up to us, although this one has resilience. And so their last card is Etrial, and with nothing to damage, that's just 5 points. So they know they can't outscore us. Okay, so in the interest of showing you other situations in which you might find yourself playing with this deck, this time we'll look at what happens when you don't have Kambi at all. So you can use a mulligan to try to find Kambi, but if you don't get it, then that means you want to get rid of cards like the Skirmishers, because those are only useful when you have Kambi in hand. The same can usually be said for Morkvarg, however we might find a creative way to play him here. Because we could Heatwave that Saber-Tooth Tiger, or we could play Morkvarg in a row by himself where he's going to get destroyed by that saber-tooth tiger and get summoned back onto the board, giving us some additional value for what would otherwise be a pretty bad card when you don't have Kambi. That means we can save the Heatwave for another target, like Dunka. And now use Elder Bear in the melee row to destroy Morkvarg and get us 2 cards in the melee row once Morkvarg comes back, shutting down the Saber-Tooth Tiger. And then let's make sure that this Mahakam Defender doesn't continue to get boosted by using some leader ability charges as well. And now with that Saber-Tooth Tiger a non-factor, we just need to make sure that we're keeping pace with them. And of course that highly boosted Sorceress is a great target for Morkvarg, however, I do have something else in mind here. So let's play Covenant of Steel here to tank whatever it is this Sorceress is about to throw at us. So yes, obviously Morkvarg could have prevented them from using Bountiful Harvest here, however, we might be able to save Morkvarg for round 3, and because they've been doing some hand boosting, that might be more important. Because I wanted to show you that even if you don't have the Arnaghad plus Sukrus combo, you can put the Drummond Berserker next to Sukrus for 1 damage every turn. And so now we force out a highly boosted Torque, which they definitely did not want to have to play here. And that was a well-timed pass, but we can use Mushy Truffle here to at least get some carryover into round 2 if needed. Which means we'll win round 1. But since we did play one more card than them to win round 1, let's dry pass here. And of course this Kieran is all they need to win round 2, although that gets rid of one of their other highly boosted cards. And of course Morkvarg is the perfect card to have as our final play against a hand boosting deck, so we'll sacrifice our Brawler against whatever this trap may be. And it actually might live. Or not. But the beautiful thing is that means they are relying entirely on this last card, and Shaping Nature on Filavandrel is just going to make it that much more painful when we shut it down with Morkvarg. So here it is. We use Morkvarg to get rid of all those boosts, and then finish the job with our leader ability. No Kambi necessary. So there's a look at a ridiculous Skellige Kambi meme deck for the new Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.